Namaste everybody. Welcome to the Nirvega Vidya channel. This is Krishna Bharadwaj, and in this video we shall look at some of the contemporary yoga masters. Now this is a topic which comes under Unit 1 of the NET syllabus, the revised NET syllabus. And we have already done 3 separate videos covering Tirumala Krishnamacharya, BKS Iyengar and Desikachar in great detail. Now those are separate videos. You will find them in our channel. Kindly do refer to them. Now those videos are in great detail. You will find that they cover the life, their teachings, their systems of yoga, all of that in great detail. Now in this video, we are going to be looking at the other contemporary masters who have been mentioned in the NET syllabus. At the outset, I would like to let you know that this video is going to be a crash course of sorts. We are not going to be looking at any of them in detail. We're just going to quickly run through the key aspects of their lives, which should be sufficient for the NET exam. However, if any of you have the means to do more studies about them, kindly do so. So this is going to be a crash course, just treat it as such. So with that in mind, let's get started. Now the first master we shall look at is Shamacharan Lahiri, who is commonly known as Lahiri Mahasaya, and his disciple Paramahansa Yogananda, the very popular Paramahansa Yogananda, who wrote Autobiography of the Yogi. So a quick background about Lahiri Mahasaya. He was born on 30th September 1828, and he was a disciple of the Kriya Yoga master Mahavatar Babaji. Now Mahavatar Babaji is kind of like how Adi Yogi is for Raja Yogis. Mahavatar Babaji is for Kriya Yogis. They are both kind of they have a very mystic aura behind them, around them, and he's supposed to be centuries old, and he gives darshan only to people whom he chooses to be his disciples. Like for example, Lahiri Mahasaya has reported seeing him in the Himalayas. In more recent times, Shriram, who is a spiritual master, he has also reported seeing Mahavatar Babaji. So he's a bit of a mystic person who's who we don't know if he really exists or not, but these people report that he's a master who is supposed to be the origin of Kriya Yoga, the tradition of Kriya Yoga. So Mahavatar Babaji is said to be the master of Lahiri Mahasaya. Till his time, the techniques of Kriya Yoga had been kept away from public knowledge for centuries together. So till Lahiri Mahasaya started propagating them, the Kriya Yoga practices were very esoteric. They were perhaps kept within certain families and all that, but they were not widespread. Now, when Mahavatar Babaji initiated Lahiri Mahasaya into the Kriya Yoga tradition, that's when Kriya Yoga became a common property for all of us in the modern time. So that was the beginning, the modern beginning, so to speak, of the Kriya Yoga tradition. His guru chose him to go and spread the knowledge of Kriya Yoga among the masses. He was a householder. He was not a sannyasin as most people are, but Lahiri Mahasaya was a householder. He married, he raised a family and worked as a government accountant. So that's a quick background about him. About his disciples now. Lahiri Mahasaya, by the way, Mahasaya is not his actual name. As we saw earlier, his actual real name was Shamacharan Lahiri. Mahasaya was a name given to him by his disciples. Mahasaya means a one with a broad mind. Ashaya here refers to the mind. Maha-ashaya means a large-minded person. So that's something which is given to extol him, like how we say Ramakrishna Paramahansa. Paramahansa is not his actual name. It's something. It's like a title given to them. So anyways, he freely gave Kriya initiation to those of every faith and encouraged his students to follow their own faith while adding Kriya techniques to what they already were practicing. So he did not, alter any of their original beliefs or their practices. He only said, you practice Kriya Yoga along with it. Make it a part of your life and your practice. It was said that he directed his disciples after carefully observing their tendencies and behaviors, molding their sadhana according to their personality. Among these disciples were Swami Shri Yukteswar Giri, who later became the guru of Paramahansa Yogananda. So Lahiri Mahasaya, Yukteswar Giri and Paramahansa Yogananda, that's the tradition. And from Paramahansa Yogananda, he became very popular in the West. He wrote Autobiography of a Yogi, and the modern Kriya Yoga tradition is followed based on all their teachings. Paramahansa Yogananda spoke about Lahiri Mahasaya extensively in his famous book from 1946, Autobiography of a Yogi. Now, he meaning Lahiri Mahasaya, started meditating at the age of 4 with the chanting of the Vedas being a part of his daily routine. Once he started spreading the message of Kriya Yoga to seekers, he was often found slipping into states of superconscious samadhi. It has been said that he was the one who initiated Sri Baba of Shirdi into Kriya Yoga. Now, Shirdi Sai Baba and I said Sri Baba, didn't I? Sai Baba. Shirdi Sai Baba and Lahiri Mahashaya were contemporaries, and it is said that Lahiri was the Kriya Yoga teacher of Sai Baba. During his lifetime, he printed thousands of books on various topics of Indian philosophy and distributed them for free. On 26th September 1895, he entered Mahasamadhi 4 days before turning 67 in Varanasi. Now, what were his teachings? His central spiritual teaching was Kriya Yoga itself, which is a series of inner pranayama practices that hasten the spiritual growth of the practitioner. Now, we've seen that a modern understanding of yoga is anything which helps one to catalyze the process of evolution. If you take Vivekananda, for example, or even Sri Aurobindo, for example, they both talk of yoga in evolutionary terms. We are in a position right now, and there is a position of perfection. Like, for example, the Adi Yogi or any yogi that we can think of, they are people who have attained that perfection. Now, the process of attaining to that perfection is something which will happen in the natural course of time. It might take 50 years, it might take 60 years, it might take 50 lifetimes for some. So yoga is nothing but a tool or a catalyst in this process. If it naturally would be happening in 50 years, yoga would make it possible to achieve that in 5 years. It is something which crunches that time. So here we see that Lahiri Mahashaya follows a similar definition, an idea of Kriya Yoga, where he says it's a set of inner pranayama practices that hasten the spiritual growth of the practitioner. In response to many types of problems that his disciples would bring him, his advice would be the same, which is to practice more Kriya Yoga. He taught that Kriya Yoga practice would give the yogi direct experience of the truth, unlike mere theoretical discussion of the scriptures. In the Indian context, religion or spirituality has always been a matter of realization. Vivekananda very clearly says religion is realization. All our books, our theories, philosophies, the churches, the temples, they are all secondary forms. What religion actually is, what a relationship with God actually is a matter of experience and not merely theoretical knowledge. So again, we see that reflecting here. He said that one should learn to solve one's problems through meditation. If one is earning an honest living and practicing honesty, then there is no need to alter one's external life in any significant way in order to become aware of God's presence. Again, we see him making spirituality a very practical thing, where he does not emphasize on doing something out of your way, where spiritual practice is not something divorced from practical life, from our actual life, the life where we have to run to make a living and take care of a family. Spirituality is not something divorced from all this, but it is something which can be imbibed into all this. So we see that he says if one is earning an honest living and practicing honesty, that is what matters. Satya is the key virtue that one has to follow to be a spiritual person. According to Lahiri, the battle of Kurukshetra was actually a representation of the inner psychological turmoil, and the different characters in the battle were actually psychological traits within the struggling yogi, represented by Arjuna. Now, this is an allegorical way of looking at the Kurukshetra battle, where an allegorical way is where we read into hidden messages, where we think it represents something, where we need not necessarily think that this is what actually happened. That the purpose of writing the Mahabharata was not to record what happened, but rather to convey a deeper message through these incidents. And that's how Lahiri Mahashaya interprets this, that it is actually a representation of the inner psychological turmoil that a yogi goes through. His understanding would later become the foundation of Paramahansa Yogananda's commentaries on the Bhagavad-Gita, God Talks with Arjuna, the Bhagavad-Gita. Now, according to Lahiri, the Mahabharata actually showed the soul's descent into matter and its challenges in retracing its way back to spirit. Now, again, the yogic concept is that the self in itself is pure. In the original state, it was pure. It was not mixed with Prakriti. The Purusha was separate from Prakriti. but because of certain things, because of whatever the reason be, there a union has come about between Purusha and Prakriti, which refers to the descent into matter. And yoga is the process of going back to the original state, which is why yoga is called by Patanjali as Pratiprasapa, a state of going back to the original state. So again, Lahiri says that Mahabharata actually talks about this, about how the Purusha gets entangled with Prakriti and how then it goes back to its original state. So that is about a quick recap of Lahiri Mahasaya. Now the next master, and a very popular one at that we'll be looking at, is Swami Sivananda Saraswati. Now he was a proponent of yoga and Vedanta. He was born as Kuppuswamy in Tirunelveli, which is a district in Tamil Nadu, on 8th September 1887. He was a practicing physician for 10 years before he realized that medicine only caused healing at a superficial level. We see that allopathy, to some extent at least, deals mainly with the physical body, and Shivananda felt that there is much more to the human personality than just the physical body. When we look at the Taittiriya Upanishad, there are the Pancha Koshas, out of which the physical body is just one of them. It's the outermost and the grossest of the koshas, the Annamaya Kosha. So he felt that there was something more to the human personality, and therefore he left the practice and took to spiritual path. Under his guru, Vishwananda Saraswati, he took up sannyasa in 1924. After rigorous sadhana, he created his yoga style, a yoga of synthesis combining karma, bhakti, jnana, and Raja Yoga. In 1934, he founded the Divine Life Society, headquartered at Shivananda Ashram, Rishikesh. Swami Sivananda entered Mahasamadhi on 14th of July 1963 in his kutira on the bank of river Ganga in Shivananda Nagar in Rishikesh. Now, what was his legacy? His disciple, Swami Vishnu Devananda Saraswati, spread the Shivananda yoga style throughout the world by establishing Shivananda Yoga Vedanta centers. These centers, however, are not affiliated to the Divine Life Society. His disciple, Swami Satyananda Saraswati, went on to establish the Bihar School of Yoga and published numerous books about various aspects of yoga and Vedanta. Swami Satyananda Saraswati, as we all know, is the mentor of Swami Niranjanananda Saraswati, who is currently there in Bihar School of Yoga. And about the numerous works, we all know that they have a huge publication where there are a lot of works. They have Hatha Pradipika, Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So that's so the guru of Satyananda Saraswati was Swami Sivananda. His disciple Swami Chinmayananda Saraswati founded the Chinmaya mission. I think this is where the greatness of Swami Sivananda really shows. I think his greatness lies in the fact that he was able to create disciples who themselves were great gurus in their own right. If you look at Swami Vishnu Devananda or Swami Satyananda Saraswati or Swami Chinmayananda, they are all great gurus in themselves. If you take Swami Chinmayananda, that too specifically, he was the guru of Swami Dayananda Saraswati, who himself was a great guru. So I think this is where Swami Sivananda really shines as a contemporary yoga master. One could say that, for example, the greatness of a Ramakrishna Paramahamsa can be seen in Swami Vivekananda, who was his disciple. So similarly, the greatness of a Shivananda can be seen in his disciples and their greatness. So this is where he really shines out as a yoga guru, as a spiritual giant. He wrote over 250 books on a variety of subjects like yoga, Vedanta, religion, Western philosophy, psychology, health, poems, stories, and dramas. If you go to their website, you'll be able to see all them. A lot of them are available for free reading. You can even download some of them as PDFs and read them. They have a huge collection. It was one of my introductions to spirituality, their works. His books emphasized the practical application of yoga philosophy over mere theoretical knowledge. So that is a quick study of Swami Sivananda. Next person we are going to be seeing is Swami Rama. He was born in 1925 and raised in the Himalayas under his master Bengali Baba. Now Bengali Baba is famous for having written a commentary on the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. The commentary of Bengali Baba is quite popular. 1949 to 1952, he became the Shankaracharya of Karveer Pitham, a branch of the Sringeri Matha. Now, Karveer Pitham is in Maharashtra, and it is a branch of the Sringeri Matha, which is one of the 4 cardinal mathas established by Adi Shankara. After 1952, he returned to his master in the Himalayas and continued his sadhana. His master encouraged him to go to the West as a teacher of yoga and spirituality. In 1969, he arrived in the US to become a research subject for a series of experiments at the Menninger Foundation in Kansas. He could produce different brain waves at will, including theta and delta, which are sleep waves. He voluntarily stopped his heart from pumping blood for 17 seconds. He actually increased the speed of pumping to 300 beats per minute, so the heart muscles simply fluttered very quickly without pumping any blood. He was able to create a temperature differential of 10 degrees Fahrenheit between the two sides of his palm. Now, these are things that have been scientifically recorded, and this is how he initially became popular for being able to perform these superhuman feats. And this is how people started taking notice of him, and this is how he was able to uh, uh, get people who became his disciples. With the media widely reporting this, seekers thronged to him for teachings. In 1966, he established the original Himalayan International Institute of Yoga, Science and Philosophy in Kanpur, India. Presently, it has branches in the US, Europe, and India. Pandit Rajmani Tigunaith succeeded Swami Rama as the spiritual head of the Himalayan Institute. He is the present head. Living with the Himalayan Masters is one of his famous books, and most of you would be knowing Swami Rama because of this book. It's a very popular book. All his achievements through his life, along with his behavior, proved that he had certainly attained certain siddhis. He was a man who had certain powers. That was clearly demonstrated through the research that was conducted in the Menninger Institute. So that is a quick study of Swami Rama and his legacy. Now, the next person we are going to be looking at is Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He's most prominently known for developing the transcendental meditation technique. He was the disciple of Swami Brahmananda Saraswati, who was the Shankaracharya of Jyotirmatha. Jyotirmatha is in Badrikashrama, Uttarakhand. Again, it is one of the 4 cardinal mathas established by Adi Shankara in the Indian Himalayas. He is reported to have trained more than 40,000 transcendental meditation teachers worldwide, teaching more than 5 million people while setting up numerous training centers in all the corners of the world. He was also a guru to Sri Ravi Shankar, the Beatles, it's a UK rock band, the Beach Boys, a US rock band, and other celebrities. He actually became very popular after his association with the Beatles. At the end of his life, his organization, owned by himself and his family, was valued at more than $300 million, including health clinics, organic farms, health supplements, etc. However, he himself led a very frugal life, and he was not lavish by any stretch of imagination. In 2008, the Maharishi retired from active involvement in the organization and went into silence until his death 3 weeks later. So that was a quick study of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Now, the last person we are going to be looking at is Shriram Sharma Acharya. He was the founder of Gayatri Parivar, which is headquartered at Shantiganj, Haridwar. His father was a Srimad Bhagavatam scholar and also very close friends with Pandit Madan Mohan Malaviya, who was the founder of the Banaras Hindu University. At the age of 8, he was initiated in the Gayatri Mantra after his thread ceremony. Thread ceremony is the Upanayana Samskara, which the people belonging to the first 3 Varnas, the Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, they go through it. And after one goes through the ceremony, he is initiated the Gayatri Mantra, and then he practices chanting it. He was a freedom fighter and often for various newspapers and wrote often. There's a typo there. He was a freedom fighter and wrote often for various newspapers under the nickname Matta. Matta means the intoxicated one. It was a nickname given to him by his friends and colleagues because it is said that he was so intoxicated with the idea of freedom and with patriotism. So they called him Matta. And he wrote various articles under the same name. He established the Brahmavarchas Research Institute in Haridwar to establish the ancient Indian yogic philosophy as the science and art of living. He spent the majority of his life reviving the roots of Indian culture, even encouraging his disciples to take up pilgrimage, that is Tirtha Yatra, to understand the various aspects of Indian culture. Now, this is a small study of Shriram Sharma Acharya, and with this we come to an end of this video. So as I said, this is a very brief, survey of all these masters. Obviously, I can't explain their contributions in one video, but this would suffice from the point of view of the NET exam. Those of you who would like to know more, kindly do, go through their works, their legacy, and try to learn more about them. Thank you.